It's been 12 long years since I last played with my children. So now Brian Redgrave will talk about my last film, A Nightmare on Elm Street 2010, and what he thinks of it. And does it hold up? Ladies and gentlemen, I am here to talk about a movie that is celebrating its 12th year anniversary, and probably nobody else will talk about it besides me, and that's A Nightmare on Elm Street 2010. By the way, forgive my intro. I tried my very best to do my. I don't want to say my own original Freddy voice because I can never mimic Robert Englund or Jackie Earl Haley. So yes, I want to talk about real quick about A Nightmare on Elm Street 2010. This is the Steelbook. There is no code. There was no code in this movie when I bought it. So sorry if you're thinking there was a code. So yeah, this is the Steelbook for it, which I fucking love, by the way. Then the back is quite simple, fire, and it says never sleep again. So yeah, why do I want to talk about this film? Well, the inside we got Freddy gloves right there. It's quite simple. I feel like this movie gets a lot of shit. And I personally have been a fan of this movie since it came out. Let it be known, I've seen every Nightmare on Elm Street film. And Nightmare on Elm Street is my favorite slasher franchise, with Freddy Krueger being my favorite slasher. You know, I love Jason, I love Michael, Leatherface, Chucky, Ghostface, and the list just goes on. But Freddy, to me, has always been the very best. So, obviously, when I saw this movie, there was expectations because it was the first film without Robert Englund. What's interesting is that this movie is technically the most successful movie worldwide for Nightmare on Elm Street, the box office wise. It's been the most successful one. So it's interesting that it's been 12 years that this movie came out, and we've had no follow up to this film or any Nightmare on Elm Street film of any capacity. A sequel to this, another reboot, another remake, a sequel to something original. I find that really interesting, especially during this time where like Michael Myers was in a similar situation from Rob Zombie's Halloween to the 2018 one that we eventually got, which was awesome. So I am waiting and hoping for Freddy's return at some fucking point. But yeah, I recently rewatched this film, which is funny because I couldn't even tell you how many times I've seen this film. I saw this movie at the theater when I came out back in 2010, and then back in the day, I bought it on DVD and I would watch it. And I got it on Blu-ray and I would watch it a few more times. Eventually bought the Steelbook and I watched it again. I watched it for the first time in, I want to say maybe 3-4 years. It had been a while. 3-4 years probably, if I had to take an estimated guess as to the last time I saw this film. So, and it's like as I was watching it, I'm like, is the movie perfect? No, I don't think it's perfect. But I just don't think the movie deserves the hate that it gets. And I don't think, like, it has a 15% on Rotten Tomatoes. And when you hear 15% out of 100, you think of the most abysmal movie that you could ever, think of. And there are some bad movies with higher scores than this. And it's kind of disgusting, may I say. So yeah, so obviously this movie's biggest thing was having to follow up Robert Englund, right? Because it was the first one without Robert Englund, and that's the first. I think that was back in the day. What was against the movie the most? I mean, no Robert Englund. Oh my God, we got Jackie Earl Haley, and then the movie came out. Oh my God, he looks terrible. Oh my God, he acts nothing like Robert Englund's Freddy, and everybody was just angry that the Freddy here, which is not the way Freddy was in the previous one, which was, this funny one-liner killer. He just, that's what he became known for throughout the years, him being a fucking dickhead. And in no way am I going to tell you here that Jackie Earle Haley's performance or portrayal was ever going to top Robert Englund, because I would be out of my mind if I thought that, because that's no. Robert Englund will always be the definitive Freddy. So I'm not here going to tell you Jackie Earl Haley was better than Robert. No, but I felt like Jackie Earl Haley was indeed a good Freddy Krueger, and the reason I liked his Freddy, as I rewatched the film like 2 weeks ago or whatever it was. What I liked about his Freddy was that it was different. It wasn't the same. It was a different portrayal, and he didn't try to mimic. At least to me, he wasn't trying to mimic Robert in any way. As Freddy would talk different, move a little different, and it just he was darker, more serious. He probably thought he was funny because there was some lines in the films that were indeed him trying to be funny, and they were funny in a dark funny. It was like a dark humor where Robert Englund's Freddy was kind of full blown comedian by the end of it. By like Freddy's Dead with the witch broom and stuff like that, full blown comedian at that point. Like when he kills the dog, he's like, "I was just petting him," and he laughs, and it's like, yeah, that's kind of funny because if he did pet him with his claws, he would do that. So it had this dark funny that the other ones didn't have. So he had some funny-ish lines, but for the most part, this Freddy was serious. He was just angry, and rightfully so in his perspective because he got killed by all the kids' parents. So yeah, I just thought Jackie's portrayal of Freddy was. I personally thought he was great. Like I said, I liked that he didn't try to copy what was done before, and that's the thing. Nowadays, I think back then, people were looking for him to be like Robert Englund. Where now, 12 years later, in 2022, from 2010, you don't want to see somebody do what somebody else did before. You want to see something different because if it's just you're doing the same, what's even the point of doing a remake? Which is one of the movie's biggest problems. What I literally just said. While Freddy was pretty different, one of the movie's biggest issues is it was almost a shot for shot remake of the original. And I like when remakes, yeah, they take certain elements and they remake a certain stuff of the movie, but they don't go shot for shot. And that's this movie's biggest problem because Chris is essentially Tina, which is the false protagonist, and then it follows the same similar beats to the original with Nancy, but it's just I wish the script would have been more original in that sense versus just trying to recreate iconic scene after iconic scene. Remember Freddy coming out the wall? Oh, here it is. How it looks now in 2010 versus 1984. You remember the bathroom scene with the hand coming out the bathtub? Oh, here it is. This is how it looks in 2010. So, like, I get trying to do copying some things, but, like, not the majority of the film. And then the stuff that maybe should have been copied wasn't. So the movie's almost a shot for shot of the original in many aspects, but they didn't recreate the iconic bed kill when the blood comes out the bed. Johnny Depp's character, like that scene should have probably been recreated in here, and they didn't. But they did recreate the Tina one with Chris just fucking going around the whole room. I feel like it's okay if you copy some things, but you should have tried to be a little more original with it. What I do like about this film is, again, I'm just kind of going back and forth on what I like and don't like. I do like the emphasis a little bit more on showing you what happened to Freddy. Where the other films, you do get that, but you little by little, movie after. It's like every movie will tell you something a little different about the backstory, so you knew his backstory. Here, they kind of tell you, but that's also. Well, I like that. It's also the movie's biggest potential wasted because it would have been better and cooler. That's what I was talking about earlier about copying the original, and then you should have deviated in certain things. It would have been cooler had Freddy been innocent of his crimes, and that is why he's going after the kids, avenging his death. That he was innocent. He didn't do nothing wrong, and the kids maybe falsely blamed him. Kids do lie. So yeah, I feel like that was a wasted potential. So the movie's kind of messing with that. Was he guilty? Was he not guilty? And by the end of it, when it's time for the revelation, he is guilty. You know, he was a monster. He had an obsession with kids, where in the original he was a child killer. Here he was, I guess you could say, a molester, literally. So it makes him obviously even more evil. Because what could be worse than that? Well, granted, killing children is not a good thing either. That's also a monster. But I just feel like it would have been more interesting had he been innocent. I just feel like that was potential wasted by the film. So yeah, the other big aspect of the film versus the other one, I've seen criticism towards that. I liked the idea of it. I think it was cool, and that was the micro naps. That if the characters were awake for so long, they would start dreaming while being awake. And for a Nightmare on Elm Street film, it just made perfect sense. That it made logical sense that there will be a breaking point where you just cannot, you're trying and trying and trying to stay awake, but Freddy can still get you. It makes Freddy a little bit scarier, because the thing with Freddy is he can only get you in your dreams, unless a Nightmare on Elm Street 2. But now it's like there is this time where you might be awake that he can get you. It made him feel like he can come out, and you don't necessarily have to be sleeping. But it also wasn't borderline stupidity like Freddy coming to the real world in part two, and that was his plan all along. I wasn't a fan of that in part two. So I like the idea of micronaps. I gotta stay awake. I gotta stay awake. But now you've been awake for so long without sleeping that Freddy can still get you. I feel like it worked. Freddy's Design, I was okay with it. Again, I'm okay if you deviate from the original look a bit. I was okay with it, and I seen countless memes of the one moment in the film where he's that kind of, I probably look nothing like him, type of look, and it goes around. Oh, just remember what this guy looked like? Like, it's unfair to use one image of the entire film to judge him now, all these years later. Oh, remember how terrible this? I thought he looked fucking cool. Now, granted, he's a little cover, but I thought he looked cool. Did he look better than Robert Englund's original look? No, but Robert Englund's look did evolve throughout the years. In fact, in Wes Craven's New Nightmare, he looks quite totally different than he did in the first one or in the second one. Like, his look had always evolved. It wasn't a brand new thing. Him having a different type of makeup in it. So yeah, I feel like the movie is not rightfully hated. It's being hated, in my opinion, not necessarily for any. I don't know. I feel like people just look at it shot for shot remake, no Robert Englund, trash, dump it. And I feel like that's a little unfair. Yeah, I feel like that's a little unfair. Like, there are some things that were different, like Nancy's dad is not in this one versus he was in the original one, and so there are some differences. But for the most part, I feel like they should have deviated a little bit more from the original one instead of just. That's why I like the Friday the 13th reboot. It took elements from before and took, from. But then it kind of created an almost original movie out of it with old ideas now made new. Versus this one, just, and I think that's why remakes will always be, seen as like trash to many people. And I am not saying in any way that this film is better than the 1984 original, because it is not. It is an inferior movie in every possible fucking way. But overall, you can't just look at it original 2010 remake trash. No, I think you get. I feel like all these years later, you can watch both and you should be able to enjoy both. I do. I love the original one. I still think, to me, this is my opinion, it's my second favorite one after Dream Warriors. Dream Warriors is my favorite one. It's fucking amazing movie. So yeah, but I don't just go hating. I honestly feel like this movie is just. If you haven't seen it in a long time, maybe go check it out. Like I said, there was one other thing I could complain about the film is I wish the kills were a little bit more creative, because like the iconic deathbed scene, where Freddy just, takes him down the bed and the blood comes out and all that. That shit was fucking iconic. And here, the kills are a little bit more basic. I will say that. Like when he kills Jesse from behind, just stabbing him. Yeah, it's a little basic, but overall, I thought it was good. I enjoyed the film. I like like I said, the whole backstory, including the parents a little bit more, what was going on, what happened back then. I think he looks cool. I think it's badass. I like the main theme of the film. Overall, I like Chris, but I just feel like the movie just, I don't know. I feel like the movie just gets hated just for the reason of no Robert. I think that Nightmare on Elm Street 2010 is quite a solid movie. Is it the best one? No. It's probably not even in the top 5, and there's what, 9 of them. But I would say it's somewhere in between. It's definitely not the weakest one in my opinion. Again, just my opinion. Shit, when's the last time you watched A Nightmare on Elm Street 2010? Never Sleep Again. I kind of wish we would have had an actual follow-up to this. I really do kind of wish we did, especially with the way it ended. And it's kind of shocking because, again, at the worldwide box office, it is the most successful Nightmare on Elm Street film. But obviously, the critical reception was a total disaster. But I personally was a fan of it in 2010, and I'm definitely still a fan in 2012. Is the movie perfect? No. Does the movie have its flaws? Yes. But I also think the movie does, like I've mentioned here a couple in the video, it does quite a few things right. I personally am a fan, and I feel like Jackie Earle Haley did a good job in not mimicking Robert and taking the character and trying to make it his own. And obviously, it's always going to be haunting him because he's not Robert Englund, and anybody's going to go, "You're not Robert Englund." But he took the character, did his own thing, and I think, to me, it worked. This has been the one, the only Brian Redgrave with my opinions, thoughts, talking about A Nightmare on Elm Street 2010. Let me know if you like this video. Like, share, subscribe. And if you want to see more videos like this, let me know. Brian Redgrave, out.